going on, guys? Assistant Sports Editor Pavel Markovic back with you for another episode of Sports Weekly, and this time I'll help my co-hosts introduce themselves.
Sports reporter Caden Storm.
Sports editor Brett Twelmeyer.
As you can see, Brett is without a mustache this time, which is because I'll let Brett explain why he doesn't have facial hair anymore.
Okay, I may have gotten a little too confident in the Cyclones. I said their first regular season loss, I'd shave it, and that was on Friday. Next day, they play Texas Tech and lose by 1 point, so it's gone. It's gone.
Blame it on him, folks.
I failed No Shave November, everybody. I failed.
Disgusting.
Brett got confident for 1 second and instantly backfired.
This is why I'm so pessimistic all the time, you guys. When I show optimism, it doesn't work. Anyway. All right. Well, like I said, lost to Texas Tech 23-22. It was a rough one the whole game. Iowa State just did not look like itself out there, both sides of the ball. I mean, the defense got stops throughout the game, but the offense just – they moved the ball, but they just could not score. Pavle, what kind of stuck out to you a lot in this one?
We lost. That's what stuck out to me the most.
Yeah, that's the main one.
I mean, I would say what stuck out to me the most was just the fact that, again, the Iowa State defense started off slow, gave up that opening drive touchdown to Texas Tech, and it was kind of a weird play when they did score, but still resulted in a score anyways. And obviously the first quarter ended in favor of Texas Tech 10-3 before Iowa State put up 10 on Texas Tech in that second quarter to take the lead at halftime. So, yeah, I feel like it's just, once again, that problem of starting slow, which Campbell and Haycock have talked about starting slow, and they need to get better at that, and still hasn't gotten better, and obviously played a huge role in, obviously, this loss on Saturday.
Caden, what did you notice? Well, like, what stuck out to you from this one?
Like you said, kind of when you're introing this game, it was the offense's inability to finish their drives.
Yeah.
I mean, really from the start of the game, I think they might have crossed the 50-yard line like almost. It felt like almost every drive they were crossing the 50-yard line, and they just could not finish. They had 430 total yards, and only before like their final drive, 15 points to show for it.
Yeah, it was rough.
I mean, they just could not. I mean, whether it was missing kicks or turning the ball over or not getting it on fourth down, they found ways to shoot themselves in the foot over and over and over. And an otherwise really like strong performance from the offense if you take away those mistakes, but obviously you can't take away mistakes in a real game. That's why you see they ended up with the loss.
Yeah, but I mean, to lose like this, to lose by just 1 point and have it being your first and only loss of the season, it's not really bad, but it does sting. Knowing what was at stake of what this team was playing for, they still control their own destiny, though. Don't get me wrong. But losing this game to Texas Tech, especially at home, homecoming, and you're off of a bye, it just felt like it might have been a trap game, and it ended up being that way. But there were really two plays that I thought were just absolutely just abysmal from Iowa State. Just poor decision-making, poor play calling probably. That 4th and 2 that they had in the first quarter, I believe it was, instead of deciding to kick the field goal, they go for it, they fail, they turn the football over. I mean, easily in field goal range. Conradi could have probably definitely added those 3 points. That changed the whole flow of the rest of the game, because that touchdown that Carson Brown scores in the fourth quarter, that would have been to go up by 9. Because then Iowa State had to go for 2 at that point because they didn't have that field goal from earlier. So that's a huge swing right there. That's 4 points that Iowa State missed out on. That's a 2-possession game with 2 minutes to go. You win the game if that happens. And then the other one was that 3rd and 10 call that they had, that they ran it with Rocco Beck. That was just stupid.
It followed up by one of, Conradi won the game against Iowa, but that was one of the worst kicks I've ever seen.
I mean, it was in the rain, into the wind, like the exact opposite way it needed to go.
But like you said, they elected to kind of just take that long field. I mean, there can't be any serious consideration of them actually picking that up unless you're just purely hoping on catching the defense by surprise, I guess, at that situation. Like, they were playing for the field goal.
Yeah.
A 51-yard field goal in the rain while it was windy. Like you said, I think that was by far the worst call of the game. I have no clue what the vision on that was. Obviously, Campbell right after the game said he wished he could have had that back, but that perplexed me.
Yeah. And obviously, like the UCF game, it kind of was about time that Iowa State was on the losing side of these close games. Obviously, that game should have looked like it was going to be a loss for Iowa State. They came out really slow, gave up a lot of those scores from that UCF rushing offense and because of Rocco Beck's picks, but still now it actually came back to bite them in the behind. So that's why it's kind of, yeah. And then you mentioned missed opportunities. Remember that Rocco Beck interception?
Yep.
In the second quarter, I know you talked about the going for it on downs and didn't get it. Like, that was also a crucial drive because they were kind of, after the Texas Tech punt, they're down by 4, kind of midway into the second quarter. You know, they could have taken that lead, and then obviously after they gained the first down, they Rocco throws that pick to Texas Tech. Well, it didn't result in much, but still that could have also was another missed opportunity that they had. Then another thing too was those 8 penalties.
Oh,
Season high for Iowa State. 6 of them were on the offense. A bunch of false starts. I think Hufford had like 2 of them.
He did,
which killed drives immediately, and just like it was just all bad. Just all like, yeah, it was just due time that this happened to Iowa State. I feel like this is a good game to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, hey, look what we did wrong. It was kind of time that they ended this perfect streak because they were kind of hanging by a thread right there, I'd say.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't talked about Hufford a whole lot. We did when Abu had his touchdown against Houston. He kind of directed him in the right way, and that's a good thing to talk about him there. But it was a lot of bad from the center on Saturday. Just there was that false start, everyone but the center. That was bad. He had 2 illegal man downfield penalties called on him, and one of them would have been a touchdown to Jaden Higgins, I believe.
Yep.
So that erased 6 points right there. That's a big score that doesn't happen. I don't know. This felt like a performance that would have happened earlier in the season. Like, you've had both of your bye weeks. It's the second half of the season. Like, this is not what should be happening at this point in the season. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it happened. But I guess all I can say is I hope they got it out of their system, because that many penalties this late in the season is not what you need when you're trying to chase a conference championship.
Yeah, and I think you can – it's almost just like one of those games, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, one of the best teams in the country in terms of not committing penalties. One of the best teams in the country in terms of not committing turnovers. And everything just kind of came to a head in this game. Just very – I mean, maybe it's the rain. Maybe it's just – I don't know. Like, just all those close games kind of catching up to you. But it just – everything just felt off.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing – like, we haven't even mentioned the first drive of the second half. Go right down the field, fumble after converting a 3rd and 12. I mean, just nothing went right. Nothing could get going. As Campbell said, he had no rhythm was established at all. Everything felt difficult, felt like kind of jerky. Nothing ever felt smooth until like the last drive of the game, second to last drive of the game for Iowa State's offense. It just nothing felt great.
Yeah. Well, like,
No, yeah, I was gonna say just another missed opportunity. What we did miss too was that personal foul, hands to the face by Tyler Nyedem. Would have been John Tez. Yeah, literally John Tez was going to be his 5th consecutive game.
5th in a row.
Yeah, it would have been his 5th in a row interception. You know, Iowa State was losing at that point, or no, they were winning at that point because I guess that same drive they did score. But yeah, they were winning on that drive. That would have literally flipped the switch at the game. That would have probably sealed the win for the Cyclones and kept them undefeated if that call wasn't had. And I know seeing on replay, you know, it kind of looked like he kind of shoved his face like to the sky. But yeah, it was kind of. That was another big crucial play. It's like we're going to be talking a lot about in this podcast, a lot of missed opportunities that this team had, both on the offensive side and the defensive side. So this is a collective team effort here. This wasn't just one side of the ball missing on rather than the other. So, yeah, just it's disappointing, I'd say.
You feel like some of the games this season, there's been some things that Iowa State probably got lucky on. It felt like this game was kind of the karma for that, in a sense of just everything just boiling over. Like nothing worked. They just. I don't have an explanation for it. Like, I mean, literally everything that could have gone wrong did.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But I guess a couple of bright spots in the team. Jaden Higgins, 10 catches for 140 yards, and he did score another touchdown. I believe he would have been 9 games in a row with a receiving touchdown had he caught one. I think it was West Virginia that he didn't catch one in. Yeah, there would have been like 9 games in a row with one. So it's good that he's still catching touchdowns, good that he's still getting yards. And then Abu Sama actually had a really strong second half. He ended up being the team's leading rusher, 13 carries for 74 yards. So Abu Sama once again proving that when there's some sort of precipitation, weather phenomena falling from the sky, he can light it up.
He's perfect cyclone because he likes to weather the storm right here and just perform when there's any type of weather happening during the game. So yeah, I was really happy to see Abu Sama finally showcase what he's able to do during his late year in his freshman campaign, because you see the season, like we've talked about a lot, like he's been that third running back. Even though he keeps getting announced as a starting running back, he's been that third back because Jalen Jackson and Carson Hansen have been above him in terms of rushing, but now this is the game for him. And I feel like finally got his confidence back fully, because he led the team in carries with 13 and ended up with 74 yards, although no score, because one of them was close to it, ended up at the 1 yard line, and then obviously what we know happened at the goal line right there, couldn't punch it in no matter what, and that was also another missed opportunity. So
Yep.
I'm glad just overall to see Abu do well, and obviously Carson Hansen also did well. I think in that first half, 11 carries, 46 yards, and Jalen Jackson only 6 carries for 12 yards. But I feel like the rush. I'm glad Abu is doing better.
Abu's touchdown, I thought, was a touch, or his when he was ruled out or down at the 1, I thought it was a touchdown. It looked like he got the ball across the plane to me, but I guess not. I'm not an official, so.
It's good to see him have that good game, though. Hopefully get that confidence back, because it has been a disappointing season individually for him. So it's really good to see. This running back room is really good. They're really talented. Obviously, it's kind of a different player that takes a step back. I feel like every game this week it was Jackson. So, I mean, I think maybe once you realize that this is just going to be a 3-man room, there isn't going to be no lead back. I think Abu Sama probably, once he figures that out, I think he probably has by now, that he should feel comfortable in that role, and he played really well.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. Just it's kind of a little story in itself, though, every week of who is going to be the top running back. And I wasn't really expecting Abu Sama to do it, but he did it, and I'm very happy that he did. It's awesome to see him finally have a solid performance like this once again.
Yeah. And I'm talking about even like kind of previewing into Kansas. I feel like he'll get another opportunity to really shine, because, well, obviously we'll go into it when we preview Kansas. They're more of the middling teams, or maybe middling to worst in terms of rushing defense. I think they're 11th in the conference right now in terms of rushing yards. They get about 158 rushing yards per game. So, yeah, I expect Abu to really step up in this Kansas game.
Speaking of rushing defense, Iowa State's wasn't great in this one, but, I mean, it was serviceable enough. Taj Brooks did what we expected him to do, 25 carries, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Kept him under 5 yards per carry, so I guess that's something. But still, Taj Brooks, definitely a big difference maker, as was Josh Kelly in the receiving room. 8 catches, 127 yards, and 2 scores. So, obviously, we had it. Those 2 players were definitely circled on our lists, and they showed out, and they scored.
Yeah, and that receiving room for Texas Tech is very reminiscent of Iowa State, just because obviously Higgins had the most of the 140, Kelly with the 127, and the gap between the next 2 players for both those teams is immense. So obviously Baron Morton for Texas Tech obviously favored Josh Kelly, and the same with Beck to Higgins. So it was kind of like a dynamic duo right there of the passing. So, and then obviously Taj Brooks, we kind of expected it, like you said, gonna get over 100 yards at least and score. That last touchdown, he wouldn't have scored if they didn't allow that last drive for him. But it seemed like Taj Brooks has just been doing this. I think he reached 4,000 career rushing yards as his time during his collegiate career, which is an amazing stat. Obviously, he's been around a lot. I think he's had 100 yards in every game he's played in. I think he missed one, like the second game of the season. But still, I don't think – it's kind of just like limiting him as much as he can. He's still going to get what's his, but obviously ended up getting what is his. But I feel like the most important part of this Iowa State defense was Baron Morton in that second quarter. That Texas Tech offense in that second quarter looked not good, to say the least. They got shut out at 0 points, and the Iowa State's defense had their best quarter because they gave up 2 interceptions. They got 2 interceptions off of Morton, who didn't really throw a lot of picks. I think he had like 17-3 in terms of touchdown interception ratio before this game, and then obviously I think all 3 of Iowa State's sacks came in that second quarter as well, so that defense really dominated in the second quarter. Yeah,
it felt like it was turning the tide, but, I mean, obviously Texas Tech found something. But I would want to point out Miles Purchase finally got his first career interception in that game.
I did not believe it when I heard that one.
Like, for him to be here this long and for it to take that long, I mean, that's...
He's played in every single game since he was a freshman. Like, he's been involved in every single game. And for him not to have a pick is insane.
Yeah. Definitely an overlooked, or like a odd stat right there. But it would have felt better if it was a win. But nonetheless, I mean, same with like Carson Brown scoring his first touchdown. I feel like those 2 things are probably going to get overlooked a little bit just because of the outcome of the game.
And one thing that is going to get overlooked, because of the outcome on the game, and I talked about this in my article after the game. I think this defense played so good against Texas Tech. I mean, it's going to get overshadowed by that final drive where, as you meant, like as we're talking about Taj Brooks, I think they kind of caught the defense lacking a little bit, handing the ball off to Taj Brooks in the hurry-up situation. He tore off 2 runs for 30 yards in that final drive. But, man, I really think that defense played really good. I think it was one of their better performances of the year, going up against a high-flying, like fast-paced, fast-tempo Texas Tech offense. Holding them to 16 points before that final drive, I think, is really commendable. I think they did a really good job, and it's really unfortunate that it didn't work out at the end, because I thought that, you know, Heacock put together a really good game plan after that first drive, which obviously they need to work on starting a little bit faster. You can't give up a touchdown on first drives all the time, but after that they really, really locked in, and I just think they played really well despite what may have happened on that final drive.
I found it interesting what Heacock said at media today being Tuesday, Election Day, as you can tell by the sticker. But he said that he wasn't really too worried about the fact that they're letting up scores in the opening drives, and that if they get a stop on the first drive and score on the second drive, the other team, it's still the same thing. But that's not what's been happening. The fact is they're letting up touchdowns, and that, like, I mean, they've given up a touchdown on what, like the first drive of like at least half of the games that they've played in this season. And then you're heading to a Kansas team who we'll get into in a little bit, but they have scored on 6 of their opening drives of their 8 games that they've played this season. So that's going to be a challenge. But again, the fact of the matter is Iowa State lets up scores. They're they're in the hole early to start almost every game. So it's worked from, you know, other games, but the Texas Tech one was a different story. So I'm hoping that they can just kind of take this loss, learn from it, and just move forward and put it behind them, because, again, they still control their own destiny. Just got to win out.
And I feel like that really comes down to when you do let up opening drives touchdowns, is deciding what you do with the coin toss, because it seems like every other time
they defer a lot.
Yeah, I was just if they win the coin toss, the choice is defer and give it to the defense, which necessarily obviously it has worked out, won 7 games because of it, but still, like, you shouldn't want to defer. You want to jump out to the early lead. I understand going on in the second half, getting the ball first, but still, like, going down in nearly every opening drive is not good to have, and obviously it was the bite in the Texas Tech game.
I like that you bring that up, because I believe Iowa State started with the football against North Dakota, and they scored in 2 plays to start the season. So they can do it.
Yeah.
Like, why not let them try it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it just kind of gives even though they haven't been on the field, it gives the defense kind of a time to, like, settle in and be like, okay,
right,
we're in this now, like, game time. Like, you're not just – it might sound, like, weird because, like, they're not actually getting settled in on the field, but your mind probably settles in a little bit watching the game go on and being like, okay, let's get mentally prepared here instead of just going right out there. So I've never really thought about that, the whole maybe they should try deferring – I mean, not deferring, but that's a pretty good point. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I also I feel like when you're looking on the scoreboard, I mean, I don't know if the players look at the scoreboard a whole lot. I feel like I would get wrapped up in that a lot if I was out there. But I feel like there's got to be a different mindset to it. If you're the offense and you're starting out down 7-0 versus if you're the defense starting out up 7-0. Because I feel like if you're the defense and there's that 7-point cushion, it's like, okay, we've got a lead. Now we have to protect it. Or I guess Heacock, Campbell, they might look at it as, oh, well, now the defense thinks they can let up because there is a lead. Yeah. So I guess there's 2 ways to look at it. But I would, if I'm on the defense, I'd like to be holding a lead versus being the offense and trying to get it back.
Yeah.
Which has happened so far this season with the 7 wins. You know, obviously they've gotten leads late in the game, but you don't want to see them get it late in the game. You want to see them hold it early and hold it all the way through, so the defense doesn't have to worry every time on having to always make stops, always rely upon those stops. So, yeah, it's really relying upon that, and I feel like because I know Iowa State will have the choice of the coin toss come when they go to Kansas because they're a away team, and if they do win, I'd like to see them get the ball the first time around, not to defer to the second half, because that'll really show whether or not this Iowa State team can build off of this loss and show, hey, this is not going to define our season, and build off to go the rest of the season potentially undefeated again, or will they defer it again, let Kansas go down the field and score because they've shown they could do it in opening drives, and, you know, they have to play catch-up again. So it's just determining what happens in that opening coin toss on Saturday.
The mindset that this defense has ran with all season has been bend, don't break. And it kept bending and bending and bending, and it finally broke. And they lost a game. So
yeah.
I feel like it was bound to happen. Losses happen. It's part of college football. But this one just, again,
It stings.
It stung a lot, yeah.
Because this might sound like cope. I don't care. Iowa State played much better than Texas Tech.
Yeah. I
Down to down, play to play. They were the better team, and it's just unfortunate that they shot themselves in the foot.
Yardage, defense, forcing turnovers, but it's just the mistakes, the stupid.
Just leaving points on the board.
I feel like this was
too often.
This was probably Mauser's worst called game, but I mean he's been really good all season. It's just this was just a dud all around. It felt like
just one of those games.
Yeah,
it's like a trap game. Yeah,
yeah.
Like they dug themselves into that hole. It's just kind of the thing, like you said, self-inflicted wounds. So it's kind of just they did it to themselves, like you guys said, and
it's hard to. They're college kids, same age as us. You can't expect them to come out every single week and play perfect. You can't. I mean, they're not pros. They're going to make mistakes, and that just unfortunately the mistakes happen in the wrong time.
Yeah,
on Saturday.
It's just part of the game. But again, there's definitely room to grow. We still got 4 games to go in the regular season. There's still a bowl game. There's still a shot to the Big 12 championship. There's still a shot to college football playoff. It's a little slim. It's slimmed down a little bit, but it's still definitely there, definitely feasible. All they have to do is just win out the rest of the way. If they win out, Iowa State's tied with Colorado right now for second in the Big 12. I believe Iowa State has a tiebreaker right now.
Yes,
Iowa State controls its own destiny to make the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, and the CFP.
The big one to me is that K-State game, but
we got to make it there first.
Up next, we got Kansas.
Yeah, starting with Kansas.
So, Kansas is up next on the schedule. This one's going to be from Arrowhead Stadium at 2:30 p.m. on FS1. It's a bounce-back game for Iowa State. It's a get-right game, but don't let Kansas fool you. The record does not speak for what this team is. They are 2-6 overall, 1-4 in the Big 12, but they've played a lot of teams close. Almost all of their losses have been by one possession, so it's just an inability to finish games this season that's kind of plagued them, but they're a very experienced group. They've got a star running back. They've got another dual-threat quarterback, so Kansas is definitely going to pose a challenge to the Cyclones this weekend.
Yeah, and I feel like most of those self-inflicted wounds from Kansas this season has been from the play of Jalen Daniels. I feel like he's single-handedly lost some of those games, and then obviously the wins have come from him also, because so far this year he has 1,500 yards with a 56.8 completion percent rating, and then 11-9 touchdown interception ratio. He's like nearly 1-to-1. So you don't want to have that as a starting quarterback in the Big 12, nearly 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. And I feel like Iowa State's secondary should take advantage of that. Just to talk early about the Jayhawks.
Yeah, Jalen Daniels. I mean, he's been a guy. I mean, I feel like he's been around forever at this point for Kansas. He's been a guy that has played really good football previous to this year, and then they lose their offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, to Penn State, and it's like I think it took him a while to get adjusted in the new offense that he has, and he seems to be settling in a little bit as of late, but that beginning of the season he was not good at all, and so I think we're going to see a little better version of him than we saw in the beginning of the season, but he just hasn't quite lived up to those maybe long shot Heisman odds that he had at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, just like a rundown of Kansas's schedule. I mean, they start with a huge win over Lindenwood, but then the loss to Illinois, that kind of showed what Illinois was capable of too. But then the loss to UNLV was kind of alarming. A lot of people were kind of questioning, like, is Kansas actually good, or is there a problem with this team? Then they lose to West Virginia by 4. They lose to TCU by 11. They lose at Arizona State, who's definitely been a surprising team, I would say, this season. I feel like Arizona State and Kansas are probably going to be the opposite of what they're doing this season heading into things. But then they destroyed Houston and then lost by 2 to Kansas State. But they're in a tough part of their schedule, too, because they just played a ranked Kansas State team. They've got a ranked Iowa State team this week. And then the next 2 games, you've got BYU, who's on top of the Big 12, and then Colorado, who's also ranked. It's a tough road.
Yeah, and then they got to finish off at Baylor, and Baylor showed promise, especially of late, because after that Iowa State loss, seems like they've got their stuff together, started to stack on a couple of these wins. So, yeah, I feel like this is not the year for Kansas. This is kind of like a what just happened moment, because I know this team is very experienced. A lot of the starters that did play last year have come back, so this is what Campbell's talked about. Like, it's one of the more experienced teams that they're going to face this year, just in terms of being with this program for a while. So, even though their record seems deceiving, I don't think the Cyclones should still take it. The Cyclones shouldn't overlook that aspect.
Yeah, I feel like the main guy that you've got to keep an eye on. I know we've talked a lot about running backs in the past: Caleb Johnson, R.J. Harvey, Taj Brooks. This week it's Devin Neal, leading rusher for Kansas. And I mean, he did kind of have like a bit of a not great performance against Kansas State, but I mean, he's gotten over 100 rushing yards in multiple games this season. So he's definitely going to be a threat for this Iowa State defense that, again, we keep talking about it, they struggle against the run.
Yeah, and even when you go back to last year when Kansas took down Iowa State at home last year when Kansas was ranked, Devin Neal was only limited to 57 yards on 21 attempts. While he did score 2 touchdowns, he still didn't get the amount of yards like he'd probably expect. So I know it's a different Iowa State Cyclones defense from the D-line, the linebackers, especially with the amount of injuries. So I feel like Devin Neal should probably get more of the yardage. I don't know about the touchdowns, but still more of the yardage than he'd expect from last year.
And then also in the rushing game, we have like the return of a dual threat quarterback.
Yep.
That's been the archetype of quarterback Iowa State's been familiar with facing this year. And last week they got a little bit of a break with it with Morton because I mean he's more of a statue back there, kind of get the ball up pretty fast. But yeah, it's the return of the dual threat quarterback. We've seen it all the way from North Dakota, all the way. I mean, besides Kate McNamara, all the way up until last week. And so I don't know if that plays into the Cyclones' hands or not because they're familiar with it, but also they've kind of struggled against it. So
I feel like it can. I mean, every dual threat quarterback they've faced, they've beaten,
yeah.
And they're 1-1 against pocket passers.
And the one win was very close.
It was, yeah. And the one loss was very close.
The one loss was very close.
Point differential 0 because the win was 1 point, loss was 1 point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take that for what you will, but
he's going to be running around out there.
He will.
Mean, with that 3-man front, the Cyclones don't get a whole lot of pressure at the quarterback. He's probably going to have time, probably going to be scrambling around, probably going to be a lot of extended plays, and that's where the elite defensive back group that Iowa State has comes into play because I think they have the opportunity to, like we've said a lot, like make these quarterbacks pay for trying to fit these ball into these like 8-man drops and stuff. So I think the D-backs should have another opportunity to force another couple turnovers.
If they can get a stop, assuming that Iowa State defers or starts on defense like they have in almost every game this season, let's say Kansas gets stopped and they don't score on the opening possession. So still 0-0 and Iowa State gets the football. Say they go down and score. Does Kansas get rattled at that point? Do they keep the ball on the ground and try and work that out, or do they go to the air? Because I feel like if they have to throw the football, they're going to be in big trouble, like you're saying. And we saw that against UCF. When UCF had to throw the football, it didn't work out too well for them. When they ran it, they were great. But throwing, I think that those two teams are pretty comparable when it comes to this sort of thing.
Well, I feel like the difference between the UCF offense and the Kansas offense was Kansas has more weapons that have been viable than the UCF offense because UCF only really had Kobe Hudson, who was the one reliable target for Ja'Cory Brown, and that was also Ja'Cory Brown's inability to actually throw a football. But Kansas obviously has Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold, and Quentin Skinner. Skinner has 294, but you could basically say they all have 300 receiving yards on the year and have been with the program. They've all scored at least one touchdown and have been big targets for Jalen Daniels in this offense. So I feel like they will have better success than UCF did in terms of throwing the football. But then again, I feel like, the Cyclones secondary should still make Jalen Daniels, make it harder for him to try and find his targets.
Yeah. I think both sides of the ball, too. The big matchups are going to be the receivers versus the cornerbacks or defensive backs. That's where it's going to be made because especially when Kansas has a guy like Kobe Bryant with his skill set, that's going to be a tough matchup for Higgins or Knoll, whoever lines up with him. So that'll be a matchup to watch for sure. Obviously, that's who Beck's going to throw it to because we still haven't really seen a third receiver to this point. You could say it's Carson Brown now that he did score that touchdown last week, But
that'd be a stretch to say, in my
I
opinion,
know,
after
like,
one target on the game.
Right, yeah. That's why.
I mean, you love to see the play
reach,
he
though.
made, but yeah, at this point you have to reach for a third receiver because there is none. There is
other
none.
than that, like, I mean, it's Eli Green, and he's only got just a handful of catches this year.
Did he even play in the game last week? I mean, I don't feel like we heard his name a single time.
I feel like I saw him a couple times, but again, he didn't catch anything.
Yeah.
Like, his best game was those back-to-back catches against West Virginia.
I mean, it's what it's been all. It's going to be, you're going to get like 18 total receptions from the Jays, and then you'll see like 4 other passes completed scattered around. I mean, that's just what it is at this point. That's what it's going to be. I don't see that changing. We're in week 11 now?
Yeah, it'll be week 11.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is at this point. The book is out. It's Higgins and Noel, and defenses can't really stop it. So, I mean, I guess that's a positive, but you would love to see. I mean, I don't want to look ahead to next year because there's still so much in front of us this year, but you would love to see someone starting to step up a little bit, and it's just not happening.
Feels like the only thing that can stop them from scoring, Higgins especially, when you go to last week, is Iowa State and its self-inflicting penalties. So,
yeah. And I feel like another aspect of that Kansas defense that kind of has been overlooked is the amount of pressure they get on the opposing quarterbacks. You see how many sacks they get as a team? 19 as a team. Their highest is 4.5 from Jeremy Robinson, spelled differently, J.R., without the Y instead of an E, but still 4.5 sacks for him. And then next closest, Dean Miller, defensive end, with 3.5, or not second closest, J.B. Brown, a linebacker, is 4, and Dean Miller's 3.5. So I feel like this offensive line is going to probably get the most challenge they've faced this season. Maybe the Iowa game had the most amount of pressure they've seen from a D-line since, but it's going to be a really good challenge for them. I hope they don't get a lot of those penalties, especially from Hufford. Hopefully he holds his own from this game, or from last game into this game, because they're going to need Rocco Beck's going to need his offensive line to really show out for him to be able to throw the balls to his receivers, because if they don't, then he's going to make them throw them some bad passes, and obviously Mello Dots in the other corner and Kobe Bryant could take advantage.
Yeah, Kansas has forced 10 interceptions this year. Kobe Bryant has 4 of those, and then Dotson has 3 of them. And then when you look at Rocco Becht and what he's done this season, 13 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. So it's basically a 2-to-1 ratio, which is definitely better than what we've seen Kansas do. So there's that aspect to it. But it feels like Becht has thrown an interception in pretty much every game. I mean, he hasn't, but it feels like there's just always like some sort of mistake that's been happening. I feel like Becht has been consistent this year, but I don't feel like he's really like gone up or like gone down at all. He's just been very stagnant with his play. Like he knows what he has to do to help them win these games. It's find the guys in the crucial moments, play from behind, manage the offense, and 7 out of 8 times it gets the job done. So I definitely think that Becht has the capability of stat-wise being possibly better than Brock Purdy all time at Iowa State, which is crazy to say out loud, but I don't know. I feel like he's kind of leveled off this season with his type and style of play.
Well, I feel like I can almost predict his stat line almost to a T coming into this weekend. He's probably going to complete 60 to 70% of his passes, throw from anywhere between 225 to 275 yards, probably 2 touchdowns and 1 weird interception.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of how it's been all season. I mean, you'll take that for sure. He's a good quarterback. He is a good quarterback, but he hasn't taken that next step. And maybe that is because of a lack of like a third weapon.
True.
That could be it. But, I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah.
He's really good, but he hasn't elevated throughout the season, which maybe we would have hoped for.
Yeah, and obviously looking to last season's matchup, Rocco Becht is going to be facing a majority of those players who have came back from that Kansas defense. And you saw what he did last year. His stats when in the loss was 20 for 26, 216 yards, no passing touchdowns with that pick 6 to Mello Dotson. And we expect probably that interception to follow in this game from either Bryant or Dotson or whoever else, probably just because of the pass rush of Kansas, but still didn't throw any touchdowns last year. And he got to see what that defense was. He got to play a full game against them, and then now he gets a chance to put more touchdowns on the board, especially at a neutral site where I feel like Cyclone Nation should travel down a lot for being played at the Chiefs Stadium instead of in Lawrence.
This will feel like a home game.
For sure.
For sure, I think.
Yeah, I like that you bring up that Dotson did get that interception on him, and then Kobe Bryant was there last year. So, yeah, Becht has seen this defense before. Higgins and Knoll have too, that means. So maybe Mauser with his new system. Maybe they can scheme something up that can work to the Cyclones' advantage, but we'll have to see. And then, yeah, it'll be – I'm really excited for the atmosphere that we're going to see down there. I agree. I think it'll be more Iowa State fans just because the Jayhawks haven't really given Jayhawk fans a whole lot to be happy about this season.
And Cyclone fans love Kansas City.
Yeah.
As we see every single March.
Yep. Big 12 tournament goes crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Men's and women's.
Kansas City turns red and gold, cardinal and gold.
Yep.
When it comes time for the Big 12 tournament, I think it will again.
I mean, it is anyway, like Arrowhead Stadium. You know.
Yeah, it'll be Iowa State colors over. Will they have the Kansas logo and like
yeah, it
paint
will
and
be
stuff
yeah
I think
I think they will. Just the grounds crew's gonna have to work overtime to get that prepared because the Chiefs do play a home game. It's the Denver Broncos the next day, so they've got to because there's no way they don't to show the Chiefs. That'd be understandable, but at the same time, it's a Kansas home game. It still matters, and yeah, I've seen grounds crew like these type of things even like in an indoor courts and stuff turn from courts to a hockey rink. Like they're able to do it, so I feel like it should be a Kansas.
Yeah, they do it at a lot of stadiums like Pitt. Temple.
Mm-hmm. That's what you get paid to do, so they'll be fine.
Yeah. I just kind of wondered, though, if they would have made it an 11 o'clock game because of that, but it is at 2:30. So, I mean, I guess, 3-4 hours doesn't really matter, but I don't know.
Makes it easier for us on travel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We can get there, wake up a little later.
At 6 a.m.
Not 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a good time regardless. I feel like this Kansas team will provide a good bounce back opportunity for this Iowa State team looking to rebound off their one loss this season, even though it does suck to end the perfect season. Still will hopefully finish off the season with the rest of the wins going along the way to try and make the Big 12 championship game and the CFP. So
yeah, speaking of the CFP, the initial rankings came out today.
True.
Iowa State.
The most important poll of the day.
Oh yeah, obviously. Nothing else. Nothing more important than the college football playoff.
I'm sure
that just
you guys haven't heard that joke a million times probably on college football Twitter or whatever. But
that sticker just means to vote for the CFP, not for the election.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Iowa State starts 17th in the poll, second among the Big 12 schools. BYU on top of that list at number 9.
Should be ranked higher.
Honestly, maybe a spot or two, but I mean, I feel like BYU's ranking was pretty fair.
Yeah.
Iowa State, I feel like is where we expected them to be, kind of in the low teens. It's where they are in the AP poll as well. So it's a start, and everything's still in front of them. I mean, it's not over. There's still definitely a clear path to it. But when you kind of look at the odds for this Kansas game too, it's closer than I originally expected it would be. Iowa State currently favored by 3. ESPN matchup predictor has Iowa State with a 55.2% chance of winning. So given that it's technically a road game, but really a neutral site, it could really go either way. Kansas is definitely a good team. They should definitely not be taken lightly.
Well, yeah, fans might get fooled by records and stuff, but advanced analytics and Vegas do not, and they know that both these teams like to play close games. It just happens to be that one team gets the ball bounces their way a little bit more often. They know that these are two teams that Iowa State maybe should have another loss, and Kansas maybe should have a few more wins.
Yeah.
So I mean, they probably know that Kansas is better than a 2-6 team, and I think we all realize that too. They probably should be better than 2-6 right now. So
yeah,
they're probably dare I say, the best 2-6 team in the country.
No, yeah, they are. They are.
Their
For
record
sure.
is very deceiving. Like they've gotten close games in the majority of their matchups. Just they haven't been able to finish, and obviously they'll self-inflicting they'll have had a lot of turnovers that they shouldn't have forced. Like Jalen Daniels throwing a lot of those early season interceptions that really killed their team's chances for a better record. And another aspect of what you said with the spread and stuff, I feel like that total, it's 49.5 right now. I'm expecting to be over 49.5. I feel like it's one of those games where the Iowa State offense could really explode off, but we always say that, and look what happens. But still, I feel like it could be one of those games that could reach over the over 49.5 total points from both teams combined. And, yeah, I think -3 might be just right for Iowa State because I feel like it could be a little bit closer than they expected because of the way Kansas has been playing close.
I feel like it might be a little bit – I think it'll be close either way. If I had to take a score prediction right now, if we want to get into that real quick, I would probably take Iowa State in this one 28-24. So I would take Iowa State to cover, and then I would take the over slightly.
I mean, I think this is going to be – I would love to say Iowa State. I feel like the most optimistic guy here on this desk. And Something about this game just it scares me. You can't let one loss turn into two.
Yeah.
You can't. And
Can't snowball.
hopefully they go into this and they make it easy, but I just don't see it. I see this being another barn burner. But I do have confidence in Campbell and Becht and all the leaders that they have on that offense and that defense to kind of right the ship, but I think it'll be a close one. I think kind of along the lines of what Brett's saying, I think it'll be like 31-28.
Wow,
You
that
think
close.
Kansas?
No, Iowa State.
Oh, okay.
I think they
Wait a
get, I
minute.
think they get the win, but I would not be shocked if they lose, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you there too. I feel like I know I said over for the point total, but I feel like Kansas will be able to put it up just because of the potential they have on that offense with the running game and those receivers. So, yeah, I feel like if I had to give a score prediction right now, I'd probably pick around, let's say, and I could change this obviously for our stat picks, which will come out later this week. It'd probably be about like 37 to like 24 maybe. So
Okay.
kind of what I have right
you
now.
got a little bit more confidence than we do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just
Which is funny because you've kind of been the more pessimistic one when it comes to picking the Cyclones this year, too.
Yeah, I'm trying to be more of a realist, not really a pessimist.
That's
the
true.
really
That's
thing.
true.
Like last year in my stat predictions, like preseason, I think I had us going like 4-8, like for the whole season. And I think I went 10-2 in my staff predictions alone because I didn't stick with my preseason. I decided to see where I was at, and my gut feeling was right most of the time. Obviously, it hasn't. I still have a positive record at 5-3, but you never, still is positive for all of us. So yeah, I feel like Iowa State should, at least from my perspective, should get a more of a comfortable win, especially with more fans traveling down from Ames to Kansas City. But yeah, I feel like Kansas does pose a problem because of how deceiving the record is right now.
The big thing really is just going to be limiting the run. I mean, that's all it's really going to come down to. I don't know what it would have to take for the defense, whether you, instead of drop 8, if you maybe try and drop 7, if you try and blitz a linebacker, keep one of them on a spy. I feel like Bo Freeler could fit that pretty well, putting him on a spy, because I feel like he's been in drop-down coverage a lot more than a lot of the other defensive backs. He can kind of play as a linebacker, play up close. Put him on a spy, and who knows, Kansas could be in trouble when trying to scramble.
True.
Yep. Bo's that guy on defense that you want. You want him all over the place. And
Yep.
the one place where I don't think you want him is just straight drop back, man-on-man coverage, like left alone with the receiver. I don't think that's where we want him. So I think that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So thanks for watching, everybody. That'll do it for us today. Iowa State and Kansas, 2:30 Saturday, FS1. Or make the trip yourself and go. Pavle and I will be there. Caden, I believe you're going as a fan, maybe?
I might be.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Well, we all three might be down there, but that'll do it from us. Wear your seatbelt, drive safe, drink water. We'll see you next time.